Welcome back. This is the podcast, It's Not Easy Being Green, episode 6, the Long Island edition, Wind Power Part 1. I'm your host, Dominique. We have Christine, our subject matter researcher, and we have Eddie, our producer, behind the cameras. Today, we have two special guests, Michelle Ann and Christina Kramer from Long Island, who are at the forefront of raising awareness to fight against a myriad of the industrial-sized so-called renewable energy projects that are threatening the coastline of Long Island, from wind turbines, best storage facilities, and high-powered EMF cables. Let us start with some introductions. Michelle, how did you come to lead the cause against the industrialization of Long Island beaches?
Hi, Dominique. Hi, Christine. Thank you so much for having us. I found out about Equinor's Empire Wind 2 project in early part of 2023 when I had attended a local civic group meeting and found out that my home was proposed to be on the cable route. I was supposed to have 345 kilovolts of high voltage EMF cables in front of it. And I said, no, I don't want that. So we were told, we were urged if we didn't want this, that we should contact our elected officials. So a bunch of like-minded residents.
Hi. Again, thank you so much for having us. We appreciate the exposure and the opportunity to get the word out to the other communities and the residents. So I hope we get a lot of listeners on here. But like Michelle, I found out in an unconventional way. I received a letter in the mail that said, hey, we're going to put 245,000 volts of electricity right in front of your home. And I showed the letter to my husband. I said, hey, does this look like something we should be alarmed at? He said, no, throw it in the garbage. And on the second page, there was a meeting for a telephone call that you could get on. So just to back myself up, I got on this call and I stood on the call for about 8 hours and listened to all of the residents ask the experts that they had online questions. And I was devastated at what I heard. And I actually had an opportunity to ask a few questions. And I asked them, where exactly is the cable going to be? They had no answers. Is it safe for us? And they were like, yeah, sure, it's safe. And I'm like, well, have you done any testing, or, where else in the world has this been done like this? And they said, well, we don't have any safety testing because we've never installed cables of this magnitude in highly populated areas such as yours. So I said, well, can you make a comparison? What is it, comparable to? And they're like, well, it's like a toaster oven or a hair dryer.
Oh, sounds
And I'm like,
familiar.
well, I don't run. Yeah. I'm like, well, I don't run my hair dryer 24 hours a day or my toaster oven. And then I went online and I Googled how many volts a toaster oven and a hair dryer are. And it was like comparing apples to elephants. There's no possible way you can make that comparison. It wasn't just my questions that devastated me. Having the opportunity to listen to all the other people ask their questions and hearing them go unanswered set off a million alarm bells. So then I went to a civic meeting in a local community, and I learned that the wires were going to be implemented for the offshore wind turbines, which led me to crawl down that rabbit hole. And I just want to make a point because they sent me a letter that said it was going to be 245,000 volts and that it was going to be stepped up in Island Park to 345. Subsequently, we had a meeting with the New York State Public Service Commission at Long Beach. And my husband was there along with hundreds of other residents in opposition. And Equinor's president was there. And we asked them, it looks like in your paperwork that there's two cables. So is it 245 or is it double that? And it turns out it's not even 245, it's 345 times 2. So it's 690,000 volts that they want to put 20 feet from my doorstep, literally my doorstep.
Oh my God.
So for me, that's unacceptable. And the problem is people just don't understand the difference between a wire that's the size of my finger or 2 or 3 fingers compared to a cable, a high voltage EMF emitting cable that's bigger than 2 of my heads. So, yeah. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, you did. How you got involved, which is similar to me and Christine, and how we've had that Q&A session with East Point Energy, that's owned by Equinor, with their so-called experts, and essentially alluding to the fact that we're guinea pigs. They've never, done something to this magnitude, but they're assuring that we'll be safe. So it's the same type of rhetoric across the board.
Yep.
So, Michelle, you have been fighting the wind turbines for several years now. Can you tell our audience some of the harmful effects on the marine life?
Sure. I want to start off by prefacing that I'm not an expert. I can only speak on what I've read from almost each and every offshore wind developer document, which is coincidentally written the same information in our Bureau of Ocean Energy Management documents. There's a document called Other Impacts, which is a strange place to put it. In that document, it states, according to the National Marine Fisheries Service memo dated February 2023, NMFS characterizes sound as impulsive PTS, which is non-impulsive, or TTS, increased risk of injury. Any of this adverse effects to the individuals due to underwater noise from pile driving activities during construction, disturbance, which are behavioral effects, and acoustic masking due to underwater noise from pile driving, shipping, and other vessel traffic. Aircraft, geophysical surveys, wind turbine generation operation, cable laying, and drilling during construction operations. It's not just for us to prove it's happening, it's really for the offshore wind developer to prove it's not. In the past months, there's been many articles and documents stating that BOEM is implementing bubble curtains to have the developers minimize the pounding of the monopiles, but it's been proven that bubble curtains don't work.
So how loud are the sounds that are made by these wind farms during construction and the operation, and what does it take to damage a marine mammal's hearing?
So Rand Acoustics, I think he found that sound waves were at 224 decibels when it only takes 173 decibels for whales and marine life to lose their hearing. Which is a death sentence to the animals affected, because a deaf whale is a dead whale. Even a half a nautical mile away, the sounds that are generated are unsafe at 151.6 decibels and can cause temporary deafness in marine mammals.
That's unbelievable. I understand that it's not only marine life that is at risk due to wind turbines. Christina, can you tell us what you have uncovered about the effects of this technology on birds, bats, and bees?
Sure, but I just want to go a little further with the whales and the deafness. Apostolos Gerasalos, he is a Rutgers scientist. He created a program called Luna. Luna is a program that only 5 scientists in the entire world are capable of creating. And he has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that the noises and the construction for offshore wind is indeed killing the marine life. And when we say marine life, it's not just whales. They're gonna destroy the plankton, the ecosystems, the fishing, the migration patterns, the reproduction patterns. It's more than just, and I don't mean to belittle whales. It's really going to be devastating for our ocean. And if our ocean dies, humanity dies, because the ocean is so important to this planet. And if they use it as a factory, it's going to perish. So as far as the birds and the bees, a bird, it's going to be perilous for the bird population, which is also part of marine life. But birds can't see the blades turning at night in their flight path. Researchers have estimated 140,000 to 328,000 birds are killed by collisions with turbine blades. Also of great concern are the number of insect deaths caused by turbines. Flying insects such as bees are our pollinators, doing an essential job directly linked to the success of farmers' crops. It's been determined in Germany that 40 million insect deaths annually are linked to the wind turbines. Extrapolating that number out to represent the wind farms in the USA, it could mean the death of almost 3 quadrillion insects, a number that would seriously harm the food production in the US. Worldwide, the estimated toll on the insect population would be 13.64 quadrillion deaths, further putting the food supply at risk. I also want to mention the bats, because insects are attracted to the wind turbines. The bats go after the insects, and now it's going to kill the bats because they're going for the insects. Bats are attracted by the food supply and unexpectedly counter a spinning blade, which they spin at approximately 170 to 200 miles per hour. They get their wings torn up and fall to their death.
I just wanted to add something. I forget where I heard this, but, to shoot a bald eagle is an illegal act. But if you want to go see a bald eagle cemetery, just go under a wind turbine.
Yep.
That's right. That's right. We have a wind turbine right here on Lido Beach. We have one turbine, and they have to periodically shut it off because they have to clean up the carnage underneath it because they put it just feet from a bird conservatory, literally feet. It's insane that they didn't see this coming.
They probably did, and they just didn't care. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe.
So this is really disturbing. And, about these helpless animals that are, just being affected by this. It's really creating an existential threat to all of them, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a threat to biodiversity. And Michelle, I was wondering what the environmental organizations are doing about this. And I understand you have uncovered some corruption in this area. Can you explain?
So, yes, back in early I think maybe the end of 2021, Equinor had come to Island Park with an environmental organization, Citizens Campaign for the Environment. And then a lot of us thought, okay, great, this would be a good thing for us since this conservation group is all for it, and spoke on behalf of Ecuador during the presentation. So when we started not hearing back from Equinor representatives or half stories from Equinor, we just did our due diligence and looked into who's working with CCE. Lobbyists, LCV, and very concerning is NYSERDA. NYSERDA is a New York State authority that is supposed to provide objective information and analysis to help all New Yorkers increase energy efficiency, save us all money, and use renewable energy to get off fossil fuels. If this was the case, why are we using such an expensive form of energy? Turbines are set to cost us 3 times the amount in our utility bills. And it goes back to the CLCPA, which is the Climate Leadership Community Protection Act in 2019, a bill. The CLCPA is inequitable financially for all New York State ratepayers. It just seems like we're going to be paying more depending on how much we make, and we're not going to be privy to certain discounts, and we're going to be paying the most we've ever paid for electricity.
So ridiculous. It's not cost effective in any way. And not only that, like we've touched on, these agencies are meant to protect our environment and marine biodiversity, and they're not doing their job. It seems like they've been bought off by these multi-million-dollar foreign corporations who originally made their money in oil. Christina, can you explain why wind turbines should not be considered a green form of energy?
Absolutely. But before that, I just want to touch on the environmental agencies with Michelle. The League of Conservation Voters, like at one point here in Long Beach, the residents were asking the city council, the slate that was back in 2023, to please bring us Equinor or some experts or, anybody who could give us answers to the questions we had. And they brought in the League of Conservation Voters with Adrienne Esposito and her group of experts. And it was exposed at that meeting that company that environmental organization takes money from Equinor. And just the other day, we found out that League of Conservation Voters gets $71 million from offshore wind activities. So that's a lot of money to push their propaganda and to buy votes and to buy support or silence, which they are actively doing every step of the way. Now, to your actual question, if you don't mind, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So why are turbines not considered green form of energy? Well, firstly, they don't take into consideration any of the metals or the harmful not metals. What do you call that? Like coal. The harmful products you need to take. Yeah, that you need to take from the environment.
Rare earth minerals.
Yeah, rare earth minerals. Not to mention that those minerals take up an enormous amount of water to mine. They strip mine the earth. They use child and slave labor to extract these these rare earth metals. Then they use fossil fuels to run these big ships, and nothing happens at all without an exorbitant amount of fossil fuels. And FYI, steel is made out of coal. So we got China over there putting up a coal plant every week while we're buying their products, and they're using coal. I mean, we're still on the same planet. How does that make sense that they are using coal and we're being forced to use electric? Oh, there's other things too. There's the blades on these turbines are made with fiberglass, and they have to be made light and strong. So they use an epoxy, and in the epoxy to make it strong is a substance called bisphenol A. I've acquired my information from a scientist in Sweden who's written like 6 white papers. Jan Erik, he'd probably be happy that I send people over there. Anyway, BPA, this bisphenol A, it's in the epoxy. So if you sand the turbine blades, it gets into the environment. People who install this have to wear respirators and masks because it's toxic. So this bisphenol A, leading edge erosion from rain, especially in salt water and weather, will tear off the outer coating. This bisphenol A is extremely toxic. It can poison thousands of gallons of water at a clip, and also gets into the fish. The fish will eat these pieces of fiberglass. And the fish, we eat the fish. Our stomach will break down the fiberglass and release the bisphenol A, which is an endocrine disruptor. That means it can cause serious eye damage, allergic reaction, respiratory, even leukemia, cancer. This bisphenol A is so terrible, and that's just from the blades. Now let's talk about the elements they use to maintain the inner parts of the turbine blades. They use thousands and thousands of gallons of fossil fuels, and they use a substance called sulfur hexafluoride, otherwise known as SF6, to maintain the gears inside of the engines. Yeah. So SF6 is 23,000 times worse than carbon dioxide. It never leaves the Earth's atmosphere, well, at least for 3,200 years. And it's one of the most toxic carcinogens we have on this Earth. So if you're trying to cut down and to say that we're going to cut down on fossil fuels or stop using fossil fuels is a complete lie. Turbines are not green. They're not clean. They're not reusable. They're not decomposable. They're not unaffordable. They're intermittent and unreliable. Everything that's bad about an energy source is contained in one little nifty package when it comes to turbines.
Everything you just said, if that doesn't get you fired up, I don't know what will. It makes me furious to hear all this, how toxic it is from the exploitation of children, the whole thing from the start to the product. It's just unbelievable, honestly.
And yet the green energy companies and the state is packaging this as safe, green, and they're essentially lying to the public.
Couldn't be
about
further
this.
from the truth.
Well, it's horrible because most people want better for the earth.
Of course.
Most people want to save energy and do their part. They don't talk about conserving anymore. All they ever talk about is more, more, more. And we're not going to be using this energy. We don't need more. We can cut down. This is, I don't know if this is being covered later, and I hope it is, but this is for data mining. It's for AI. It's for big tech and big companies. They need more, and they should be required to pay for their own energy, and it should not be falling on the backs of the ratepayers, the middle class working people.
Absolutely. So this came up. Is it far-fetched to say that the operation of wind turbines can cause the oceans or the atmosphere to increase in temperature?
Yes.
Whose question is that?
Anyone who wants to take that. I should have said whoever wants to answer this question.
Absolutely. So they never talk about when you're putting up these turbines. There's also substations. Okay. For the turbines right here in Long Island, they want to put up 2 substations. And when they do that, they'll take our clean, cold water into their substation. They'll use it to cool off these high voltage electric, the electric, it needs to stay cool so they can transport it without it blowing up. So they're going to cool it in these substations. Then they're going to bleach it. And then they're going to send back into the ocean warm, dirty, chemicalized water. And that water would be 40 degrees warmer than it was when it came into the substation. And they'll be doing this at like 3 million gallons per day. And that's times 2. And then add all the substations that will be placed throughout the East Coast. They will definitely be warming our ocean waters and creating global warming. So don't you think it's kind of strange that they changed it from global warming because they knew they were full of it with that, and now they put it to climate change,
right,
so that it's all encompassing? Oh, the climate's changing. Of course it is, you dummies, because climate's change. Sorry.
You're just saying what we want to say right now.
And yes, that is kind of the dirty little secret about offshore wind developers. When they do show pictures of their projects or videos, they show the big, beautiful, glistening turbines, so they think they're beautiful. They never show these offshore substations, right? So it looks like a big oil rig,
right?
Sitting in the ocean, and there's typically 1 per project. I think there's a project proposed for New Jersey. There might be 6 to 10 substations for 1 project.
Wow.
And it really depends on whether or not the cables are DC to AC. I think that's when they use the cooling station. It's called a cooling off station, something to that effect. But yeah.
Not to get off topic, but if you're saying that this is what they're proposing for off the Jersey Shore, if people knew, I would think that would really affect the tourist industry in Jersey as well. Like, who wants to have their children go into the ocean that is being heavily polluted?
Yeah, and in Long Island, of course.
Well, that happened with Nantucket. And just to jump off on that SF6 thing again, substations use 6,603 pounds of SF6 for their onshore substations. So this toxic, what do you call that? Chemical greenhouse gas. This toxic greenhouse gas is used in the thousands of pounds for all of this green energy.
And if you warm the ocean, the storms are going to get much worse. So
that's right.
And they'll take down the turbines. It can't handle a nor'easter of any size or magnitude. You will have all those blades in the water, creating a huge catastrophe for marine life.
And going back to the turbine, the tourism that you just spoke on, Nantucket just experienced the Vineyard Wind offshore turbine broke over the summer, and they're still retrieving a lot of those pieces. They did mapping of the seafloor and found that, I think over 100-mile radius, there's 15 places where the turbine fiberglass, the blade is sitting. So that's still being worked on throughout the summer, which is the peak period in Nantucket. Surfing schools had to be closed. A lot of tourists said, we're out of here. We don't want to, why am I here at the beach if I can't even go on the beach, because all the shards of fiberglass were washing up. And the select board is really doing their due diligence for their residents and their beaches, because this is the crown jewel of Nantucket, New Jersey, Long Island. Everyone comes to our beaches.
And that affects the small business owners.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And FYI, when the Vineyard Wind Nantucket turbine blade fell into the ocean, it dropped 60 tons of fiberglass into the ocean with the bisphenol A. And Vineyard said it wasn't toxic. And they have and the kids, lifeguards who felt compelled to take these things out of the ocean when they saw it washing up the shores, they were like, don't worry, it's non-toxic. And then they sent their own crew in hazmat suits. And also subsequently, the Nantucket residents are taking Vineyard Wind to court because they found out it is indeed toxic with the bisphenol A's and the BPA's. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah. So now that we've scratched the surface on the environmental hazards of these wind turbines, Michelle, can you tell us about the size and scope of these wind projects that have been built and those that are in the proposal stage for Long Island?
Yes. I think right now off Long Island, we have South Fork Wind, which is 12 turbines. The cable runs through East Hampton. If the name of the road escapes me right now, it'll come to us.
Yes.
And it's a small neighborhood. The homes are very spaced very far apart. When they put the cable in, they repave the whole road. You could never know that you're driving over all of this EMF on your way to the beach. In Virginia, there's one that just got done in Barnstable. That cable, I think it's Coven Beach. They have signs throughout their parking lot. I'm not sure about the beach, saying that there's EMF cables below the ground. So if EMF is safe, why the signs? That's concerning. So right now, we weren't able to get ahead of fighting the cable for Empire Wind 1 because that cable is going to be going through the water to Brooklyn. And that was a year ahead of us in the Article 7 process. So we were able to fight the cable from coming through our communities, our densely packed communities in Long Island, South Shore of Long Island. So right now they're supposedly working on the substation in Brooklyn for Empire Wind 1 and Empire Wind 2. We really don't know where that is at the moment.
Where is that one in Brooklyn? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is that near like Coney Island? Around there?
South Brooklyn Marine Terminal. Oh. I don't think that's near Coney Island. Yeah. So it's going to do a lot with impacts to the shipping lanes. A lot of the work for the cable route is going to be intertwined with the boats coming in. So that's something else to pay attention to. So when Equinor had come to town, our local communities, I only spoke on Empire Wind 2, not Empire Wind 1. We kind of found that out on our own when we were reading the documents. And going back to Nantucket for a moment about the Vineyard blade break, that was about 15 miles offshore. So Vineyard approached Nantucket and said, okay, we're going to put these turbines 15 miles offshore, but we'll give you millions of dollars. And they called it a good neighbor agreement. So Empire Wind 1 is just as close to Long Beach. And when Equinor came to town with their project, they never once spoke to us about Empire Wind 1. They would always say, oh, the turbines are going to be 12 to 16 miles, 14 to 18 miles. The distance always changed, which, again, was alarming to us because for them not to even know. So the lack of transparency, again, from these wind companies all have the same playbook we're finding, which brings me to the new projects that are currently in the queue. NYSERDA just had their 5th solicitation for Community Offshore Wind, Vineyard Excelsior, Vineyard again, Atlantic Shores, which is a project for New Jersey, and Attentive Energy. And I think, and Ørsted Long Island Wind. And I believe these projects may have 1 and 2. Usually every developer has 2 projects.
Wow.
So all of these projects have submitted proposals to NYSERDA for an OREC. So an OREC is a certificate representing 1 megawatt hour of electricity produced from offshore wind and used by customers in New York State to provide financial assistance for investments in offshore wind energy, because offshore wind requires a large capital investment and taxpayers are funding these projects back to the companies and their investors.
And just to jump off of that, so the taxpayers are paying by way of subsidies, and then connected to the turbines is the infrastructure, which ratepayers will be paying to install these high voltage cables throughout Long Island, which will be emitting cancerous EMF radiation throughout our communities, and we're paying for it. So, and then those high voltage cables will then bring energy to battery energy substations, which I understand you guys are fanatics about, because you understand the implications of the BESS. So it really is a 3-tiered project that each branch of these projects acts like they're the only project and that they're not interconnected. So everybody's not alarmed at the enormity of what's going to happen to Long Island, and they keep them separate to keep us divided. And I think it's very disingenuous. And I think they need to come clean about what they're going to do to our beautiful Long Island.
I think what you just said really sums up the whole situation, that it's not a standalone facility. This is all connected. Mm-hmm. You know, which brings us to, Michelle, what success have you had in fighting wind developers, and what role would the Rapid Act mean for wind development in Long Island?
So, yes, back to what I stated before, grassroots residents banded together, which is us. We hired a lawyer to fight the cable in Equinor's Empire Wind 2 application. We made it very difficult for Equinor, and recently we're very happy to say that they withdrew their application for the cables. However, it's not over. It's never over. So going back to last year, Governor Hochul vetoed a bill, S6218A, which would have alienated Long Beach. But however, the state will always do what they want to do, and to circumvent local residents and municipalities, Governor Hochul imposed the Renewable Action through Project Interconnection Deployment Act, which means that every developer may seek to reapply after the new Office of Renewable Energy siting process is up and running. I think next year, Governor Hochul had put that in her 2025 budget. So this process eliminates settlement and provides a default set of certificate conditions that no party has been allowed to challenge in a proceeding ever. The Rapid Act basically overrules all local government ordinances. They just, I wouldn't say rubber stamp, rubber stamp. It's just going to move ahead for the green energy.
Right.
Can I elaborate on that just a little bit? So just to make it clear for people to understand, we had a process in place that was meant to protect the residents and the impacted stakeholders. And because our community got together and got 15,000 signatures in opposition to the turbines, Kathy Hochul was compelled to put a hold on Empire 2. But at the same time, she was creating the Rapid Act, which does circumvent any residential input, any municipality input. And for the municipalities who are sitting back and doing nothing about the Rapid Act, let's just remind ourselves that the Rapid Act will impact local government control for a multitude of issues. When they're going to start here, but they're never going to finish. Local control will be a thing of the past, and we will all be governed by one singular appointed person. That's a problem.
Big problem.
Yeah, big problem.
And the reason why I want to go back, the reason why the governor had vetoed that bill was because of local opposition. So I'm not really understanding the thought process behind, yay, thank you very much for vetoing that bill for local opposition, but then we're going to do what we want anyway.
We're going to streamline it for you,
Right.
so that you can't do this again.
Well, they're hoping maybe that people won't catch that, you know.
Yeah.
We're always paying attention.
That's like with us here with Senator Harcum, how he tried. I mean, we've said it numerous times, but when he sponsored the bill S-7834, he was trying as well to eliminate local control, just to close the gap.
Right.
And our community as well. He received a lot of backlash. You know, a lot of people wanted to actually go to his office and protest. He received I don't know how many phone calls and whatnot. And then so that bill was struck down, of course, because it's election year. So he's scared of, you know, people getting
But
upset.
then he lied about the consequences of that bill. He did say that there was stakeholder input, but the reality was very different if you read the bill.
Yeah.
So.
They're all reading from this. It's the same playbook, right? So
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of them don't even read the bills that they sign. Let's be honest.
Yep.
They're hundreds of pages, and they'll give us bill numbers and expect us to read it.
yeah, and I'm not a lawyer.
Right. And right. And the Rapid Act was baked into some omnibill, right? It was
For the budget.
Yeah,
the budget.
yeah. It was a big budget, and it was just stuck in there. And when they approved the budget, they approved the Rapid Act.
Yep.
It was insanity. So what elected official would feel good about declining a budget that could hurt so many people?
Right.
So they approved the budget, and now in essence they approved the Rapid Act. It's a catch-22.
Yeah.
You know, you can't. They need to stop doing these big giant situations and just taking.
Why? Yeah. Why don't they do that though? Why are they not single?
Because it's working for them. It's working for them to do it this way.
Right. And right now they have the supermajority, so they can get everything through.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So we have a local bill that was just introduced, A10723, and it was introduced by Matt Slater that will protect the local community's rights. Requires the Office of Renewable Energy Siting to develop standards and conditions for the siting of certain large-scale renewable energy systems, particularly BESS. It further requires approval of municipalities for such siting of these facilities, and it requires that the Hudson River watershed area receive additional protections, as it is a critical resource because it serves the drinking water of New York City and, of course, our local drinking water. Essentially, if this bill is passed, BESS would not be allowed in the Hudson River watershed, which we are hoping that it would pass. But of course, even though Harcum is for Clean Water Act and so forth, he probably would be against this because he is so for this green energy.
Didn't Harcum want to put the turbines in Lake Erie?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And right now they're laying a high density cable in the Hudson River. And we don't know the effects of that with the warming of the water and what's going to happen to the marine life there.
Yeah. So
Oh, right. We spoke about, we spoke about the substations, but we didn't even talk about the tens of thousands of miles of cables that they're going to put under the water. Each one of those cables also emits heat and will warm the ocean. So there's so many components.
yeah, it's hard to fit into, I don't know, an episode.
And what's so interesting also is that these companies, Equinor, over in Europe, is going back to oil production. So they're offsetting their oil
They never
polluting.
stopped oil production.
Right. So they're
Equinoil is called Stat Oil. They changed their name in 2019, but they've always been a petro company and an oil company. This is just a farce. It's a scam.
But now they're bringing it here because we've invited it in New York because of
Yeah.
who we have elected.
Right, with their green energy, green deal. So people might be interested in helping to join the cause. Where can they go to help with you guys?
Our website, which is pocklany.org. Our Facebook group, which is Protect Our Coast, Long Island, New York. We have email at pocklany, POCLINY @gmail.com. We respond to everyone, and there's a lot of information on our website and Facebook page. We're also on Instagram at Pocklany as well. And we're working together with Save the East Coast, who have, I think, 500,000 signatures against this. And because there is no decommissioning project, there's no decommissioning plan. These will just basically fall apart in our oceans forever.
And decommissioning has been said to cost actually more than to install the turbines, and that will lay on the backs of the taxpayers. And I just want to take one other second to let your viewers know that there is a nationwide coalition building. NOAA is pronounced or spelled NOOA, is a new national offshore wind opposition group that is looking to represent the nation and protect all of America's waterways, including Lake Erie and Hudson, and the infrastructure. So anybody who has opposition to the infrastructure of the high voltage cables, the buses, and the turbines from offshore wind specifically can join this group. And I think that it's a new group, and it's growing pretty fast, and they've got their ducks in a row. I'm actually on the board. I'm the treasurer. But I'm really excited because I think that people who are starting these groups, who like us started with nowhere to go and nothing to turn to and no help, I think this is going to be a great place for beginners to get PDFs, to find out how to fundraise, to just get some general information. And also all the groups in America will be shared on there. And I think that it's going to be a great starting point for anybody who has to start with this struggle.
That sounds great.
So NOAA, NOOA.
Yep.
So that concludes.
It's actually pronounced no way. No way.
No way.
No way.
No way.
Yeah.
You're not coming here. No way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that concludes this episode, Long Island Edition, Wind Power Part 1. Thank you for watching the podcast. It's Not Easy Being Green. Like and subscribe, write us your comments, and let's raise awareness. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.